It was a cold and silent night on the edge of the human settlement. The wind moved slowly through the dry grass, and the stars above watched like quiet eyes in the dark sky. Owen, a middle-aged human man, sat on the front steps of his small farmhouse. Sipping weak tea from a cracked cup, his land was dry, forgotten by many, just like him. He had chosen this quiet life after the war, far from the cities, far from politics, far from aliens. He didn't hate them, but he didn't trust them either. After everything he had seen on the battlefield, trust came slow, then came the knock. It wasn't loud, just soft and trembling, like the fingers making it had no strength left. Owen stood, his body stiff from years of hard work. He grabbed his old rifle from beside the door, just in case, and walked toward the rusted gate at the edge of his property. The moonlight showed a shadow, small, thin, and shaking. As he stepped closer, his breath caught in his throat. It was a woman. No, not human. She was tall and lean, with purple skin covered in dirt and frost. Her arms wrapped around two small children, pressed tightly to her body. Their eyes were wide, glowing faintly in the night. All three looked half frozen, barely standing. The woman spoke, her voice soft and broken. "Please shelter my children." Owen stared, unsure if this was a trick. He had heard stories, alien mothers using children to lower a human's guard, but this didn't feel like a trick. One of the children coughed violently, too dry to be healthy. The other held a torn piece of cloth, sucking on it for comfort. The mother swayed, and then suddenly collapsed. Owen dropped the rifle and rushed forward, catching her just before she hit the ground. Her children clung to her, terrified. He picked her up in his arms, lighter than he expected, and nodded to the kids. "Come." They followed without a word. Inside his home, he laid the woman on his old couch and quickly built a fire. He wrapped the children in blankets, gave them water, and found some leftover soup. They didn't speak, but their eyes watched him closely, unsure if they were safe. Owen sat beside the fire, looking at them. The woman's breathing was shallow but steady. Her face was marked by pain, fear, and exhaustion. The children sat beside her, one resting a small hand on her cheek. He whispered, mostly to himself, "What in the stars happened to you?" Hours passed before the woman finally opened her eyes. Her lips moved slowly. "Thank you." "Human," he nodded. "Name's Owen," she blinked, then said, "I'm Zalara. These are my children, Nevu and Mira." Owen looked at the little ones. "They yours?" She nodded weakly. "Yes. I have no one else. Please don't turn us out." He didn't answer. Instead, he stood up and began making more soup. It wasn't much, just old vegetables and powdered broth, but it was warm. As the room filled with quiet warmth, Owen glanced at Zalara. "Where did you come from?" She hesitated, eyes darting to her kids. "We escaped. From a ship, from bad people." That didn't explain much, but he didn't push her. "Not tonight." Zalara looked down, her voice shaking. "If you send us away, we won't live. The cold, my children." Owen let out a long breath, then looked at her seriously. "You can stay. Just for now, till you get your strength back." Tears formed in her glowing eyes. "Thank you. I will work, help, anything." He nodded, unsure what he was getting himself into. This was trouble, he knew it. Aliens brought questions, danger, and whispers from townsfolk. But those kids, their eyes haunted him. Later that night, when the fire burned low and the house grew quiet, Owen stood at the window, staring into the blackness outside. Something in his gut told him this was just the beginning. The wind howled again, and he could almost hear it whispering, warning him. But behind him, on his old worn-out couch, an alien mother slept holding her children close. For the first time in days, they were safe. And for the first time in years, Owen's house was not empty. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But one thing was certain. That knock on the rusted gate had changed everything. Owen woke up before the sun. His old body was used to early mornings. Years of farming had trained him well. But this morning felt different. The house wasn't silent anymore. From the kitchen, he could hear the soft clatter of something moving. He stepped out of his room and found a strange scene. The alien woman. Zalara was on her knees, scrubbing the wooden floor with a torn cloth. Her children were asleep in the corner, wrapped in blankets. She looked up quickly when she saw him. Fear in her eyes. "I didn't mean to wake you, I just wanted to clean. I owe you." Owen didn't say anything at first. He looked at her, not just as an alien, but as someone broken, tired, and trying hard to prove she was worth sheltering. "You didn't have to," he finally said. "But I appreciate it." She gave a small nod, then kept cleaning. Later that morning, Owen brought her a bowl of warm porridge. Simple and bland, but better than hunger. She thanked him softly and fed the children first, carefully lifting each spoon to their tiny mouths. The way she cared for them, it wasn't fake, it wasn't a trick. As the day passed, Zalara sat by the fire while Owen fixed the old fence outside. After a while, she stepped out and joined him, handing him tools, not speaking much, but working alongside him. Finally, Owen asked, "What happened to you?" "Before you came to my gate," Zalara froze. Her hands trembled slightly, but she didn't stop working. "Do you really want to know?" "I wouldn't ask if I didn't." She looked up at the sky for a moment, as if searching for strength. Then began. "I was a wife once. My mate, Tarek, was a warrior, respected among our kind. But behind closed doors, he changed." Owen kept his eyes on his tools, but listened carefully. "He used to hurt me. He said I was weak, useless, and when food became hard to find, he tried to sell us, me and the children." Owen clenched his jaw. "I ran," she whispered. "I stabbed him while he slept, not to kill, just enough to escape. I took the kids and left. I thought I could hide." "But they're looking for you," Owen said slowly. "Yes," she replied. "My own kind call me a criminal now, a traitor. They believe I abandoned a proud warrior. But I just wanted to live, for my children to live." A heavy silence fell between them. The only sound was the wind through the broken fence posts. "You believe me?" she asked softly. "I do," Owen said after a moment. "Too many good women suffer while others turn away." Zalara wiped her eyes, hiding the tears. "You're different. You didn't have to open your door." "I almost didn't," he said honestly. "But something told me to. Maybe it was your kids' eyes. Maybe it was your voice. Or maybe I'm just tired of turning people away." They went back to work, the quiet now filled with a strange kind of peace. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Zalara helped prepare dinner. Stale bread warmed on the stove, boiled roots, and dried meat. Nivu and Mira sat close to Owen now, no longer afraid. Mira pointed at a carved wooden figure on the shelf. "What's that?" Owen smiled. "That's a carving of a wild animal from Earth." "It's called a bear." Nivu looked impressed. "Did you fight it?" Owen chuckled. "No, but I did wrestle some nasty aliens back in my soldier days." Zalara's eyes met his. "Surprised you were in the war." "Yeah," he said simply. "But I left that life behind. Thought I'd seen enough suffering." Zalara nodded. "Maybe that's why you understand." As night came again, Zalara sat on the porch, watching the stars while her children slept safely inside. Owen brought her a cup of warm water and sat beside her. "Do you miss your world?" he asked. "Sometimes," she replied, "but it never felt like home, not the way this place does. Even with its silence and cold, home isn't a place," Owen said. "It's safety. It's peace." She looked at him, eyes shining softly in the moonlight. "Then maybe we're closer to home than I thought." They didn't speak after that, but the quiet between them was no longer uncomfortable. In the shadows of the dark sky, two souls, one human, one alien, sat side by side, haunted by the past, uncertain of the future, but bound by a silent understanding. Neither knew what would come next, but both knew something had already changed. The morning sky was soft and gray as Owen hitched up his old hover cart. He needed to visit the village for supplies, food, fuel, medicine. His stock was low, and now he had more mouths to feed. Zilara stood at the doorway with her children. Nivu clung to her leg. Mira peeked from behind her thin cloak. Their eyes followed Owen as he loaded crates onto the cart. "I'll be back before dark," he said, tossing a bag over his shoulder. Then he paused, looking at the three of them, huddled in the cold wind. Something in his chest tugged. "Come with me," he said suddenly. Zilara blinked. "Are you sure?" Owen nodded. "You said you'd help. Might as well start now besides. The kids could use fresh air." It was a short ride to the village. 10 miles across dry plains, broken fences, and long-forgotten battlefields. As they approached the first buildings, Owen felt his stomach tighten. The village wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. As soon as they arrived, eyes turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Children were pulled away by their mothers. Market stalls went quiet. Zilara kept her head down, holding her children's hands tightly. Her cloak couldn't hide her glowing skin or long fingers, and the soft hum of her voice as she whispered comfort to Mira. Owen walked tall beside her, pretending not to notice the stares. He stopped at the general store, the mechanic shop, the old seed shed. He greeted people with his usual calm, but few responded. One man, tall with a thick beard, finally stepped in front of him. "Didn't think you were the type, Owen," he said, voice sharp. "Bringing one of them here. Is this who you've been hiding?" Owen's jaw tightened. "She's a widow. She's got kids. That's all anyone needs to know. They're dangerous," the man muttered. "Always have been. That war wasn't long ago. People remember." "I remember too," Owen replied. "I remember that not all monsters came from the stars." The man glared at him, but didn't reply. Zilara tried to stay close, but even the shopkeepers avoided her. At one stall, she reached for a scarf, but the owner quickly snatched it away. "That's not for her." Owen turned sharply. "She's with me." The woman behind the stall shrugged. "Doesn't matter. Your choices are your own. But don't bring her problems into our town." Zilara stepped back without a word. Mira hid her face in Zilara's chest, and Nivu tried to act strong but wiped a tear with his sleeve. Back in the cart, on the way home, no one spoke. The wind was loud, and so was the silence between them. "I shouldn't have come," Zilara whispered at last. "I just made things harder for you." Owen didn't reply right away. His hands gripped the reins tightly. "You didn't do anything wrong. But they hate me," she said, voice cracking. "They look at me like I'm filth. Like I'm poison," he sighed. "That's not your fault. They're scared of change, scared of things they don't understand." "I understand hate," Zilara said. "I lived with it for years. It's the same in every world." Back at the farmhouse, Zilara helped put away the supplies while the children sat quietly on the porch. Mira was too quiet, and Nivu stared at the hills like he was expecting someone to come for them. That night, Owen fixed the broken heater in the children's room. The small space filled with warm air, and for the first time, the two kids fell asleep without clinging to each other. Zilara stood in the doorway, watching them, then looked at Owen. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. "When no one else will." Owen rubbed his tired hands. "Because I know what it feels like to come back from hell and have nowhere to go." "You lost someone too?" she asked. He nodded. "A long time ago, my brother didn't survive the war, and I never forgave myself for it." Zilara stepped closer, her voice soft. "I'm sorry. I never told anyone that," he said. "But when I saw you and your kids at the gate, something in me said it was time to stop running from the past." The fire crackled, warming the quiet room. Zilara's eyes were full of emotion, but she didn't cry. She simply whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." Outside, the wind blew cold, and in the village the whispers would continue. But inside that small farmhouse, something warm had begun. Something fragile, but growing. Not everyone would understand. Not everyone would approve, but maybe, just maybe, that didn't matter anymore. The nights were growing longer, colder too. The quiet land around Owen's farm had turned into a frozen shell, like it was holding its breath. Inside the house, warmth flickered from the fireplace. But something else flickered too. Something unsaid, heavy, hanging between Owen and Zalara like smoke. Zalara had begun taking small steps to reclaim herself. She cooked simple meals, taught the children how to sweep and fold blankets, and even helped plant a few winter herbs in the small glass crate Owen had nearly forgotten he owned. But her smile was never full. It was always brief, a polite shadow. She moved like someone still waiting for the ground to vanish beneath her feet. That night, after the children had fallen asleep, Owen found Zalara sitting alone on the porch, her glowing eyes reflecting the moonlight. She didn't hear him at first, just kept staring into the dark field, hands wrapped around her knees. He stepped closer. "You all right?" She turned her head slightly, then nodded without looking at him. "Do you ever think about the past, Owen?" "All the time," he said, sitting beside her. "It doesn't let go easy." Zalara was quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered, "I should tell you the truth. All of it." Owen looked at her gently. "Only if you want to." She pulled the edge of the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "My husband wasn't a war hero, like people thought. He was a destroyer, cruel and cold." Her voice was steady, but her fingers trembled. "He used to starve the children when they cried too loud. He would lock me in the sleeping pod for hours, sometimes days. He said I was lucky to be chosen as his mate, but all I felt was fear." Owen didn't speak, but his jaw clenched hard. "When the famine came," she continued, "he decided we were too much weight. He planned to trade us for food. He said it was the logical choice. Soldiers must survive, not weak mothers." Zalara swallowed hard. "I overheard him arranging the deal, selling me and the children to a black market crew. It wasn't even for food, just luxury supplies. Spice, a new cloak. I waited until night," she said, her voice lower now. "He had a hunting blade. I took it. And I did what I had to do. He didn't die right away, but I ran, grabbed the children, and fled into the cold." She looked at Owen, her eyes filled with something deeper than pain, guilt. "I didn't want to kill him. I didn't want any of this." Owen leaned forward, his voice firm but quiet. "You protected your children. You did what no one else would. That's not something to be ashamed of. But my people won't see it that way," she said bitterly. "To them, a female harming a male, even in defense, is dishonor. No one will shelter me, not after what I did." "Then they don't deserve you," Owen said without hesitation. Zalara stared at him, surprised by how easily he said it. "I've seen monsters in every shape," Owen continued. "Alien, human, doesn't matter. But I've also seen kindness in places no one expected. You're not a killer, Zalara. You're a mother who fought for her kids, and I respect that more than any soldier's medal." A tear finally slid down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. "You speak like you've been through something too." Owen looked down at the frozen ground beyond the porch. "I lost people, friends, my brother. The war changed me, made me stop trusting, made me cold, but I think maybe helping you is helping me too." Zalara touched the wooden railing, fingers brushing the frost. "Thank you, Owen. I never thought a human would be the first to make me feel safe." He stood up slowly, offering her his hand. She hesitated for a moment, then took it. He helped her up, steady and firm. "Come inside," he said. "It's too cold out here for old wounds." As they walked back into the house, something invisible shifted between them. Not romance, not yet, but something far more rare. Trust. Inside, the fire crackled, casting long shadows across the room. Mira stirred in her sleep. Nivu mumbled a dream. Zalara paused at the doorway and looked back one last time at the night sky. Then she closed the door, not with fear, but with quiet strength. For the first time, the truth had been spoken, and for the first time, she wasn't carrying it alone. Days turned into weeks. The bitter cold outside only deepened. But inside Owen's farmhouse, life had started to breathe again. The silence was no longer empty. It was peaceful. Zalara swept the floors, while Mira sang softly to herself near the window. Nivu helped Owen in the barn. carrying tools and pretending to be strong. Owen didn't say it aloud, but he was growing used to their presence. No, not just used to it. He liked it. Each morning began with soft voices, and each night ended with a warm fire, laughter from the children, and quiet, shared moments between Owen and Zilara, moments where nothing needed to be said. One evening, after dinner, they all sat together in the dim glow of the fire. Mira slept on Zalara's lap, and Nivu leaned against Owen's side, already half dreaming. Zilara looked at the scene before her. A simple room, a gentle man, and children resting without fear. She took a slow breath, then turned her eyes. To Owen, "I need to ask you something," she said quietly, careful not to wake the children. Owen looked at her, sensing the change in her voice. "Go ahead. If you take me as your wife," she whispered, "my people can no longer claim me. I would be under human protection. My children too." Owen blinked, unsure he had heard her right. She looked down, not in shame, but in fear of rejection. "This is not a trick, not a game. I ask not for pity. I ask for safety. I will work. Care for the home. Care for you. I only ask that you say I belong here, that we are yours." Owen leaned back slowly, his heart suddenly heavy in his chest. He had expected something like this. Someday, maybe, but now that the moment had come, he felt like the air had changed. "You want to marry me," he said quietly. "I want my children to live," she replied. "And I want to stop running." Her voice cracked as she added, "But I also want you to want us, not just accept us." Owen looked at her carefully. The firelight danced across her face. Her skin glowed softly. Her eyes shimmered like dew in moonlight. She was not like any woman he had ever known, and yet, something about her felt deeply human, deeply real. "You think I'm the answer to your problems," he said gently. "I think you're the only one who didn't look away," Zilara replied. "That means something in this galaxy." Owen stood up slowly and walked to the window. The stars outside seemed far, cold, and unreachable, but behind him was warmth, was family. "I've been alone a long time," he said finally, "and I didn't realize how empty this house was until you three walked in." Zilara held her breath. "I'm not saying yes tonight," he said carefully, turning around, "but I'm not saying no either." She nodded slowly. "That is more than I hoped for." Nivu stirred and mumbled, "Mom." Warm, then rolled deeper into the blankets. Mira shifted too, curling tighter into her mother's arms. Zilara smiled softly and looked up at Owen. "No matter what you decide, thank you for giving them this. Just one night without fear." Owen walked over and sat down again beside her. "Get some rest, we'll talk tomorrow." She nodded, her heart both heavy and light. Later that night, Owen couldn't sleep. He stood alone on the porch, staring at the sky. Marriage, a word so big, so serious, especially between species. But hadn't everything already changed? Those children weren't strangers anymore. They were laughing, breathing life into his dead house. And Zilara, she didn't look at him like a savior. She looked at him like someone she could stand beside, not hide behind. He remembered the words she had spoken. "I ask not for pity, I ask for safety." But maybe she had given him something. Too, not safety, but meaning. He looked back through the window, saw Zilara asleep on the couch. The children curled beside her, and in that moment, something inside Owen shifted. This wasn't about saving anyone. This was about choosing to be part of something again. The wind howled that night. Louder than usual, it rushed through the broken fence posts like a warning. Owen couldn't sleep. His mind was full of Zalara's offer, of the children's sleepy smiles, of the quiet warmth that had grown inside his home like a flickering flame. He stood at the window, watching the night. Everything was still, until it wasn't. A flash, barely visible, moved in the distance, near the old well beyond the barn. Owen narrowed his eyes, pressing his hand against the cold glass. Something wasn't right. He moved quietly, grabbed his old hunting rifle from above the door. and stepped outside into the dark. The cold slapped him in the face, the snow crunching beneath his boots. There, another movement, this time behind the chicken shed. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the air, a hiss, then a low growl, alien, not natural. Owen raised the rifle, his heart pounding. He wasn't a soldier anymore, but his hands still remembered how to hold a weapon. A shadow lunged toward him, tall and armored, but not fully cloaked. Owen fired once, hitting the ground near its feet. The creature hissed and vanished back into the dark. More were coming. Owen turned and ran for the house, yelling, "Zalara, get the kids!" Inside, she was already awake, pulling Nira into her arms and yelling for Nivu to hide. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with terror. "They found us," she whispered. "The bounty hunters, they tracked me." Owen bolted the front door, shoved furniture against it, and pulled down a metal case from the top shelf. Inside, old soldier gear, dusty but intact. "I thought you said you left the war behind," Zalara said, helping him load a second weapon. "I did," he replied, "but war keeps finding me." A heavy crash hit the back door, the wood splintered, and a thick arm pushed through. Owen fired again, this time hitting the attacker in the shoulder. The creature shrieked and stumbled back into the snow. Nivu peeked out from under the table, his hands shaking. "Are they going to take us?" "No," Owen said firmly, "not while I'm alive." But they were outnumbered 3, maybe 4. Enemies, all fast, all prepared. Zalara looked at him, her voice urgent. "There's a hidden tunnel beneath the floorboards. From your storm shelter, it's small, but it leads out past the field." "You've known this the whole time?" he asked, surprised. "I was going to tell you, if things got bad." He didn't argue. Instead, he pulled up the wooden hatch, revealing the narrow passage below. "Take the kids," he said, handing her a flashlight. "Go now." "What about you?" Zalara asked. "I'll hold them off. I'm not leaving you," she said firmly, her eyes glowing with fury and fear. "You have to," Owen said. "They want you, not me. If you stay, the kids won't make it." Zalara stared at him for one heartbeat longer, then grabbed the children, kissed Owen on the cheek, and said, "If you die, I will come back and haunt you." Owen smiled. Even as another crash shook the wall, "I'll hold you to that." She disappeared into the tunnel, closing the hatch behind her. Seconds later, the door finally gave in. 2 armored hunters burst into the room, roaring. Owen fired once, twice, hitting one in the chest and the other in the leg. But a third one rushed him from behind, knocking the rifle from his hands. They struggled, fists and elbows colliding, until Owen reached for the broken table leg and slammed it into the alien's helmet. The creature dropped, and Owen stumbled back, blood dripping from his nose. Outside, red lights flickered from a parked skimmer, their ship ready to carry his new family away. Not tonight. Owen grabbed the last flare gun from the drawer and ran outside. The wind almost took him down, but he aimed high and fired. A blinding red flare exploded in the sky. Minutes later, the sound of nearby village alarms echoed through the valley. Someone had seen it. Help would come. The remaining bounty hunters retreated, dragging their wounded, disappearing into the night like ghosts. When silence returned, Owen dropped to his knees in the snow, exhausted. Zalara emerged from the tunnel minutes later. Children in tow, she ran to him, falling to her knees, cradling his bruised face in her hands. "You stayed," she whispered. "I promised," he murmured. "No one takes what's mine." That night, in a half-burned house with blood on the walls and smoke in the air, Owen finally understood. He hadn't just protected her, he had chosen her, and now there was no going back. Smoke still lingered in the air the next morning, thin gray trails curling up from the blackened wood near the back of Owen's farmhouse. The battle was over, but the scars were fresh. Broken furniture, bullet holes, and ash-covered walls told the story louder than words. Owen sat on the front steps, a cloth pressed to the cut on his forehead. His arm was bruised, and his ribs ached, but he was alive. Zalara stepped out quietly, Mira in her arms, and Nivu holding her other hand. She looked around the ruined yard, the shattered fence, the half-burned porch rail, and then her eyes settled on Owen. "Are you still breathing?" she asked softly. He gave a crooked smile. "Barely." Zalara sat beside him, her children leaning into her sides. Owen looked at them for a long moment, then reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper, a registration form. "I had this sent months ago," he said, handing it to her. "Didn't know if I'd ever need it." She unfolded the page slowly, her eyes widened, and her lips trembled. "Application for cross-species family union, Earth jurisdiction," she read aloud. Owen looked straight ahead, not meeting her gaze. "It makes everything legal. No more bounty hunters, no more hiding. You'll be under Earth law, protected. You're offering us a place," she whispered. "Not just a roof. A name." Owen turned to her, eyes steady. "I'm offering a family." Tears filled Zalara's eyes. She reached out and took his hand, not with desperation, but with something far deeper, hope. That afternoon, a small crowd gathered near the edge of the property. Curious villagers had come, drawn by the flare from the night before. They expected to see a burned-down home, maybe a body or two. What they found instead was something none of them had expected. Owen stood at the front of the porch, bandaged but proud, Zalara beside him, holding Mira and Nivu. One of the older villagers, a woman named Elsie, stepped forward and said cautiously, "Heard there was trouble. You all right, Owen?" "Have visitors last night," Owen said. "The unwelcome kind," another man spoke. "We thought you'd gotten yourself killed for taking in one of them." "I nearly did," Owen replied. "And I'd do it again." The crowd was silent, shifting uneasily. Then Elsie spoke again, quieter. "You protected her." "The children too," Owen nodded. "They're not just strangers now. They're part of this land, part of this house, part of me." A long pause followed, until a young boy stepped forward, the baker's son. He walked up to Nivu and shyly held out a small wrapped candy. Nivu looked at Zalara, who nodded gently. The boy placed the candy in Nivu's hand and smiled. That single gesture cracked something open. Another villager stepped forward, offering blankets. Another brought canned food. Someone else whispered they could help fix the broken fence. They hadn't come to help, but now, seeing the truth with their own eyes, the broken house, the man who had bled to protect a mother and her children, their hearts began to change. Later, as the sun began to set, Owen stood beside Zalara, watching Mira chase a butterfly through the field while Nivu helped stack new wood beside the porch. "You think this peace will last?" she asked quietly. "Maybe not forever," Owen replied, "but it's a start." She reached down and laced her fingers with his. "You've given us more than shelter, Owen. You gave us a future." He looked at her, then nodded slowly. "And you gave me a reason to live again." That night, there was no fear, only warmth. The house still needed repairs. The land still needed work, but laughter filled the air, and in a quiet ceremony beneath the stars, with no grand speech and no crowd, Owen placed a simple handmade ring on Zalara's finger, not out of duty, not out of pity, but out of choice. A human man, an alien widow, and her two children, together. They weren't broken pieces anymore. They were a new kind of family.